Remember gym class? Picking teams. You know, the captains always chose their friends or
But
maybe
it's
the best players.
totally lopsided teams every time.
Right. But then the teacher steps in, makes everyone count off 1, 2, 1, 2. Suddenly the teams are actually, well, pretty balanced.
Surprisingly fair, yeah.
Why bring this up? Because it's just a perfect little illustration of how random assignment can create fairness. And in research, that kind of fairness, that's exactly the goal. So welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into the, well, fascinating world of how researchers design studies.
And crucially, the power of randomization, that proverbial coin flip.
Exactly.
And our mission for you today, really, is to help you understand when and why researchers essentially, flip that coin to assign participants to different groups in a study. We'll explore how this process helps slash bias, why it's seen as the gold standard for figuring out cause and effect, and we'll also tackle some common myths about it.
Yeah, because there are quite a few misunderstandings out there.
Definitely. We're drawing on some great sources for this and a really insightful paper by Stephen Sen called 7 Myths of Randomization in Clinical Trials.
Okay, great. So let's unpack this. Let's get to the heart of what makes good research reliable, how we know we can trust the findings.
Right. So to really get why randomization is such a big deal, we first need to set the stage, understand the two main kinds of studies, observational and experimental. Think of observational studies first. Here, researchers are kind of like nature documentary filmmakers. They just watch, they record, they describe what's going on naturally.
Without interfering. Yeah, they track what happens.
Exactly. They're not changing anything.
And what's fascinating here, the core difference really boils down to one question. Who or what decides who gets exposed to something?
Yeah.
If it's life, or the participants themselves making choices like choosing to smoke, or what diet to eat, then it's observational. The researcher isn't assigning the exposure.
Right. Life assigns it. Life assigns it. And we observe, just watching.
Got it. Okay, so that's observational. Then the other category.
Experimental studies.
This is where the researchers get their hands dirty, so to speak.
Yeah. They actively intervene. They introduce something, a new drug, maybe a teaching method, an exercise program. And here's the crucial part. They assign that intervention to different groups.
They decide who gets what.
Yes. And the prime example, the one everyone talks about as the sort of gold standard for evidence, is the randomized controlled trial, the RCT.
Right, the gold standard.
This is where participants are randomly assigned, there's our key word, to either get the intervention or be in a control group that doesn't.
Okay, so let's loop back to that gym class analogy again. Counting off 1, 2, 1, 2 hour, flipping a coin. It seems simple, but it does something really fundamental.
Agrees.
Fairness. Balanced groups right from the get-go. No captains picking their buddies.
Exactly. And in research, that fairness achieved through randomization is, well, it's the great equalizer. It's our best shot at making sure the groups we're comparing are truly comparable before the study even starts.
So it's all about starting on a level playing field.
Pretty much. The main reason to randomize is to minimize those systematic differences between groups, which helps reduce bias. And it's clever because it helps balance both the factors we know might be important, like age or sex, and, crucially, all those unknown or unmeasured factors that could influence the outcome too, all just by chance. It stops people, researchers, or participants from sort of cherry-picking who goes into which group.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting because randomization sounds like our best weapon against some sneaky biases that can totally mess up the results, right?
Absolutely. One of the biggest ones it tackles head-on is confounding bias.
Confound. Okay, break that down.
So confounding happens when there's a third factor, the confounder, that's mixed up with both the thing you're studying, the exposure, and the outcome you're measuring.
Okay, so it's linked to both.
Yes, it influences both, and it distorts the relationship you think you're seeing. It's like a mixing of effects. It can easily lead you to the wrong conclusion.
Can you give us a classic example?
Sure. Let's take a famous one. Early studies found people who drank a lot of coffee seemed to have higher rates of heart disease.
Right, so coffee causes heart disease.
Well, maybe not directly. It turned out that heavy coffee drinkers back then were also much more likely to smoke cigarettes. And we know smoking causes heart disease.
Ah, okay. So smoking was the confounder.
Exactly. Smoking is linked to drinking coffee, and it independently causes heart disease. So it muddies the water. It makes it look like coffee is the culprit when smoking is doing the heavy lifting.
Gotcha. So how does randomization fix that?
Well, if we could, hypothetically and ethically, this is tricky, But if we could randomly assign people to either drink coffee or not drink coffee,
Hmm.
then on average, the smokers and non-smokers would be roughly evenly distributed between the coffee group and the no coffee group. Randomization breaks that link between the confounder, smoking, and the exposure.
Coffee. It spreads the smokers out fairly.
Right. So then if the coffee group still shows higher heart disease rates, we could be much more confident it's actually the coffee because we've neutralized the effect of smoking by balancing it across the groups.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It isolates the effect you want to study. What about other biases? You mentioned selection bias.
Yeah, selection bias, particularly when people are enrolled or assigned to groups. This happens when the way participants are selected into the study groups creates differences between them from the very start.
So they weren't really comparable to begin with.
Exactly. Maybe sicker patients get put in one group, or more motivated people volunteer for the treatment group. Randomization just wipes that out.
Yeah.
Because everyone who agrees to be in the study has an equal known chance of ending up in any of the groups. It's pure chance deciding, not preference, not prognosis, not anything else. It guarantees baseline comparability, on average.
Okay, randomization is sounding incredibly powerful, almost like, yeah, magic bullet for research. But surely we can't just randomize everything. Are there times when it's not the right tool or even, like, not possible?
That's a really important point. And no, absolutely not. It's not always the answer. There are major ethical and practical hurdles.
Like what?
Well, ethically, researchers need to be in a state of what's called equipoise.
Equipoise. Fancy word.
It just means there has to be genuine uncertainty about which treatment or intervention is actually better. You can't ethically randomize someone to something you know is harmful.
Right, like assigning people to smoke.
Exactly. Or withhold a treatment you know is life-saving. That's just unethical. And of course, you need informed consent. People have to agree, and trials have strict safety monitoring.
Okay, so ethics is a big one. What about practical stuff?
Huge practical considerations. RCTs are often incredibly expensive. They take a long time. You need enough people willing to participate.
Recruitment can be tough.
Very tough. And think about the outcome. If you're studying something really rare or something that takes, say, 20 or 30 years to develop, an RCT might just be completely impractical.
You can't run a trial for 30 years easily.
Not easily, no.
Yeah.
And then there's adherence. Will people actually stick to the group they're assigned to? Especially if it involves, I don't know, a difficult diet or they don't get the treatment they were hoping for.
Yeah, people might drop out or switch.
Right. And just the sheer complexity and cost, setting up multiple sites, data management, regulatory stuff, it's a massive undertaking.
So all those factors together really mean that sometimes, even if an RCT would give the strongest evidence in theory, an observational study might be the only ethical or practical way to investigate a question.
Precisely. They each have their place.
Now, we've talked about the power of randomization, but you mentioned earlier there are some common myths, some misunderstandings that even experts can fall into if they're not, deep in trial design. That paper by Stephen Sen sounds really useful here.
It is. Sen does a great job tackling these. One he calls astonishingly persistent is the myth that patients in clinical trials are all treated simultaneously.
Like they all start on day one.
Yeah. But that's just not how it works.
Yeah.
Patients are recruited and enrolled sequentially, one after another, often over months or years.
Ah, okay. So you can't just line everyone up at the start.
Nope. Which means you can't perfectly match everyone up front on every little detail. And you certainly can't, re-randomize halfway through if you see an imbalance starting to appear. It's a rolling process.
That makes sense. What's another myth?
Myth 2, according to Sen, is the idea that you need perfect balance of all the prognostic factors, all those things that might predict the outcome for the trial results to be valid.
But isn't balance the whole point?
Well, yes and no. Sen argues this view is quite wrong. For the factors we can see and measure observed covariates, like maybe baseline blood pressure, we don't need perfect balance. If there are some slight differences between groups after randomization, we have statistical techniques like analysis of covariance that can adjust for those imbalances in the analysis.
So the math can handle small imbalances we see?
Exactly. But here's a really clever bit. For the unobserved factors, the things we don't measure or maybe don't even know about,
Yeah.
randomization ensures that their probability distribution is balanced across the groups. We might not know the exact value for each person, but we know the odds are the same in each group.
The statistics account for the randomness, even for unseen factors.
Right. The analysis inherently makes an allowance for the fact that the groups won't be perfectly identical.
Interesting. So that kind of relates to myth, the idea that randomization somehow stops you from balancing things you do want to balance. That sounds backward.
It is backward.
Yeah.
Randomization isn't an alternative to balancing. It works with it. Remember the old R.A. Fisher line, balance what you can and randomize what you can't.
Ah, okay.
So trialists often do try to balance important known factors using techniques like stratified randomization. For example, they might randomize within specific age groups or within different hospitals to make sure those factors are balanced.
So you can balance and randomize together.
Absolutely. They're partners.
Oh,
And again, the statistical analysis is built to handle the remaining random variation, the stuff you couldn't explicitly balance. That's why sometimes, confidence intervals might seem a bit wide on Forsen. They're honestly reflecting the uncertainty introduced by factors that aren't perfectly matched. It's a feature, not a bug.
okay. One more myth.
The idea that because you've randomized, you can just ignore important patient characteristics you did measure.
Why would you ignore information you have?
Exactly. Sen points out, this seems illogical, yet some people act as if randomization makes those observed factors irrelevant. But valid statistical inference relies on conditioning on what is known.
Meaning, use the data you've got.
Use the data you've got.
Yeah.
If you measured baseline severity of illness and you see it differ slightly between groups by chance, you should account for that in your analysis. Okay, finally, another seemingly intuitive one. Large trials are more balanced than small ones. It feels like it should be true that sheer numbers would lead to better balance. Is that a myth, too?
Correction. Well, it's nuanced. While the expected random difference between two groups will reduce with larger sample sizes.
So they get closer on average.
Yes, leading to greater expected balance proportionately. But the primary benefit consumed by conventional analyses, the main advantage of large trials, is increased precision, meaning we get a more exact estimate of the treatment effect. It's not necessarily about increased reliability in terms of baseline balance, ensuring the validity of the analysis itself. Randomization ensures validity in principle, regardless of size.
So a small trial could still be valid.
Absolutely. A small trial might, by chance, be well-balanced, and even very large ones can have some chance differences on specific factors.
So what do researchers do then, especially in smaller trials?
For small trials especially, methods like stratification randomizing within specific groups, like age brackets or using permuted blocks, are often employed at the design stage. These techniques help guarantee balance on critical variables from the outset while still using randomization.
Okay, we've talked theory, we've busted some deep-seated myths. Now let's bring it home with some real-world examples that dramatically illustrate the power of randomization, especially where observational studies, for all their utility, led us confidently down the wrong path, and RCTs delivered the crucial, sometimes shocking, aha moment.
Yeah, these are really powerful. There's a saying that really captures this dynamic. Observational studies propose, RCTs dispose.
Propose, dispose. I like that.
It highlights that even with advanced statistical adjustments, observational studies are inherently vulnerable to unknown confounders you simply can't adjust for because you don't even know they exist.
Right, those hidden culprits again?
Exactly. Randomization, uniquely, is the only way to balance those unknowns across your study groups.
Give us one of those famous, perhaps even shocking, examples where randomization truly changed everything.
Okay, one of the most famous and impactful is hormone replacement therapy, or HRT, for postmenopausal women.
Oh, I remember hearing about this.
Yeah. For decades, multiple observational studies consistently showed women on HRT had much lower rates of heart disease, a significant 30–50% reduction in risk.
That sounds pretty good.
It did. Doctors and patients alike believed it was powerfully protective for the heart, making perfect sense to use it widely. But this observed benefit was largely due to what we call healthy user bias.
Healthy user bias.
Basically, women who chose HRT were often more health conscious to begin with. They tended to have higher socioeconomic status, better access to healthcare, healthier diets, exercised more.
They were already healthier.
Exactly. Their overall healthy choices, not necessarily the HRT itself, were likely protecting their hearts. The HRT use was just correlated with being healthier overall.
And then came the RCT that flipped everything on its head, didn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
In 2002, the Women's Health Initiative, or WHI, a massive randomized controlled trial, completely shocked the medical community. It showed that HRT did not reduce heart disease risk.
No benefit at all.
Worse, actually. For combined estrogen-progestin therapy, it was associated with a slight increase in coronary events, about a 29% higher risk.
Wow. an increase.
Yeah. Without randomization, we might still believe HRT was good for the heart, mistaking that powerful correlation, that healthy user bias, for a non-existent causation.
As we bring this deep dive to a close, let's circle back to that gym teacher, ensuring fairness with a simple count-off.
Back to gym class.
We've seen how randomization scales that elementary idea of fairness to the grand stage of science, truly acting as the great equalizer. Remember that randomization in experimental trials is designed to create equivalent groups.
Fundamentally equivalent.
This allows us to isolate and understand the true effect of an intervention, because the groups are balanced on both known and, crucially, unknown factors. It's our best defense against selection bias and confounding, making these RCTs uniquely capable of overturning false conclusions from observational studies, giving us the clearest picture of cause and effect.
Absolutely. And we've also learned that while randomization is powerful, it's not a magic bullet, right? It has to be done correctly.
Right.
It must be executed properly with things like proper allocation concealment, making sure no one can guess the next assignment, and complemented by other robust study design elements like blinding and careful follow-up to maintain its advantages.
So as part of a bigger picture.
Exactly.